All right. Hello, everybody. Hello, Seth.
Hi, Seth.
How are you, everybody? Welcome again to the quarantine. We are here live broadcasting on YouTube and Facebook. And we just wanted to mention that this show is ultimately for everybody, but mostly for for everyone who really wants to sort of put the pieces together and see the bigger picture of what's happening. You know, our goal here is not to just give you some commentary on what's happening in the world, but to really give you the grand scheme of things, which is only possible thanks to the insights that we have from the wisdom of Kabbalah. And and that really helps us go beyond, what you see on the news every day, all kinds of directions. Especially today, you can see so many conflicting ideas and thoughts and concerns and anxieties. We'll talk about that more later. But this show is for those who want to see how to go beyond that, how to go above that, how we can go beyond taking sides, how we can all be on the same side, how we can come together and really look at what nature is putting in front of us and where we need to go. So, tell us where you're from, where you're watching from. As always, gives us a great feeling. I'm already seeing that some people are connecting from Florida, from Miami, um, and from Europe. I see some. So yeah, let us know where you're from. As always, Seth, what do you feel like saying at the start of today?
Grrr.
Okay. All
I've been
right.
torn up inside a soft for days. Today again. Um, Let me tell you what I saw in. So we have the wisdom of Kabbalah, which explains uh, what we see happening in the world. But let me tell you, in my short life, what I've seen. So when I was growing up in the 70s, we had like, I don't know, I'm sure I'm older than you, but the TV had like you turned the channel with like a knob on the television. So I think
Yeah, yeah.
there's like
Been
four
there.
channels.
Been there,
Okay,
done
and if
that.
the TV was like fuzzy, you literally hit it on the side, and then it kind of like it came
Yeah.
back. So
Yeah.
that's how it was. So there was like three or four stations, and it seemed. I mean, I was young, but there was news on. I think a couple times a day, and that's how you understood what was going on. When I was in high school already, there was it was called Operation Desert Storm. That was the beginning of when the U.S. went to Iraq the first time, I guess. It was and then you had CNN, and then you started to have like 24-hour news. And then within a short amount of time, you had like these two very distinct and polar opposite voices in the news. You had the right and the left, basically, these two totally different voices. But it was okay. It's still, even though they were opposite,
It doesn't sound like
it's
today, doesn't it?
we didn't get to today yet. So it was
Okay.
two different voices, but it was still part of the same. You have that uncle or whatever, but it's still the same family. It was like different people, but around the
Okay.
holiday table
You mean
today,
less hostility between the sides? That's what you mean?
it was just two differing opinions, very strong opinions. Today, now let's get to that. Let's get to today. It's not a commentary on the evolution of news. I'm just saying what I see today is
Yeah.
just total confusion. Total
Okay.
confusion.
Now I
Total
see.
confusion. Okay. One outlet says we need to stay home. Another news outlet says we need to open up. One outlet says that South Korea defeated the corona with a lockdown. Another one says if you don't have the lockdown, you're killing people. We hear that the United States is
And some
loosening
people and
restrictions.
some experts are saying the lockdown is killing us psychologically or mentally or that
Right.
sort of
Mental, if the
thing.
mental health, exactly.
Yeah.
If So the US now is loosening restrictions, and at the same time, newly confirmed corona cases globally jumped to a daily record this week. Okay.
Right.
billions and billions of dollars
And
are
in
being poured.
China, by the way, they're seeing a second wave now in another province there, and like taking it super seriously, and they want to do like 10 million tests in 10 days or some ridiculous number like that that only China can do. Yeah. So
Okay.
all over the
Billions of
place.
dollars are being poured into vaccine research to eradicate COVID-19. Okay. And today, the governor of New York, in his daily press briefing,
Yeah.
said there's a number of countries that are reporting a mysterious illness in children believed to be connected to COVID, and the number of cases has nearly doubled in a week. So you can't a person a person just doesn't know what to believe. We don't know where these things are coming from. Is it some, trillion billionaire who needs to get his business open? Is it some politician who wants to get elected? Is it somebody who's fearing for their life? Is it somebody who's depressed at home? There's too many voices, and Asaf, humanity is very, very confused right now, and it's
Mm-hmm.
getting very difficult to function like this because I was out on a bike ride with my kid,
Yeah.
and we're on one side of the street, and we passed a couple on the other side of the street. I mean, it had to be 30 feet away from us. And as we walked past them, they turned and put their masks, like they turned towards the bushes and put their masks on. Like, what are we? I mean, we could have spit, you can't reach them,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's this whole, like, people are so confused about, like this was a neighbor who considered me like a lethal enemy as I walked past. Like, I mean, I don't know what they considered, but they were scared,
Yeah.
right? So
Sure.
people are really, really confused about what's going on, and it's getting to a point where it's like going to break because you don't know.
Tell you what. Why don't we mix things up a bit? I have a video clip here that I want to show.
Okay.
Why don't we play it, and we then pick up right where we leave off right now. What do you say? You're up
Let's
for it?
do it. I'm up for it.
Okay. Okay. So let's play this.
The day that this will be over, perhaps we will feel a tinge of regret. It won't feel as comfortable to go back to normal as we experience a new lack of meaning. The day will remove the gloves. Perhaps we will not want to continue in that same race for success that leaves our relationships unattended. As our time slips between our fingers, pointing towards a screen, or ordering another delivery made of plastic, instead of calling a relative or a friend. The day we will remove our masks, perhaps instead of cursing that driver on the road, we will speak with kindness. And when we can hug again, we won't feel cagey or want to step away. Maybe it will suddenly seem strange to us to work from morning till exhaustion. And even though we thought it would be so hard to spend all our time with our kids, suddenly, as they go their way, a new sadness will creep up inside of us. The day we will open the doors to our heart and allow others to come closer, we will know it was not a coincidence, that now is our time to build a reality where competition does not devour us. A world where loving relationships give true meaning to our life. The day this will be all over, perhaps we will finally feel connected.
Okay, I feel a little better.
Do you? Yeah, no, I mean, this doesn't that give you a certain, you know, direction in which to see everything that is happening now? I mean, look, it may sound a little simplistic even, but it is actually very simple when you look at what's happening through the eyes of Kabbalah. You go, okay, everything that's happening on our level is human beings now trying to like battle what they're seeing and what they're thinking. And like you said, when you open the news and you see the headlines, there's so many vested interests behind them, and everything is somewhat falsified and somewhat skewed by certain interests, and you don't really know what you're looking at anymore. And we're experiencing something that could be life-threatening. On the other hand, you know, if the virus doesn't kill us, the economy will kill us. There's all, and you know, I'm in the last few days, you know, all that my wife and I are talking about is whether we send the kids back to school or not, because the schools are reopening here. But, you know, it's not necessarily safe. So what, are we going to send our children to be guinea pigs? On the other hand, you know, some people have to go to work.
So just that is soft.
There's
right,
all
exactly.
that stuff. But here's the thing. Though. When you look through the lens of Kabbalah, understanding that nature is putting us on a path towards a new degree of human existence, you understand why we need the confusion, bro. We need it. It is required. Because if you understand how spiritual development works through the lens of Kabbalah, you know that you have to be confused at first. You have to be able to defocus your standard vision. You have to be able to rethink where you are. You have to be able to get out of your box. And so it has to happen through some sort of uncertainty, confusion, anxiety. But on the other hand, it can also turn into a beautiful adventure of elevation and development and spiritual growth if we can learn how to walk together with the process. Go ahead, man.
I was gonna say, yeah, people who have who both have to go to work, so they don't have a choice about their kids. So if we see the problems in the normal, rational way that we always see our problems, it's paralyzing. The situation is just completely paralyzing, right? They want me to go to work because why? Because some oligarch needs to make his billions, but then what do I do with my kids? So, okay, so I work from home so my kid can stay home, but both of my neighbors, they're a young couple and they both need to work, so they have to send their kid to school. And so our kids have been in school together for the last 4 years, and so now my kid's going to be staying home and their kid's going to school. And
yeah.
And what is going on here? It's just the details, the details that come down to where am I going to get food? How am I going to deal with my rent? All these kind of things, the details become paralyzing. It's just too much. So what you brought up is that when we approach the wisdom inside of nature, and what we see is that that the wisdom that's inside of nature is also inside of us.
Right.
If we were just like focused on our stomach, for example, like, it's so acidy, you know, you like zoom out, you're like, oh, it's acidy,
Yeah.
but around it is this nice thing, and then around that is like this nice soft skin, and I can hug, and you know, it's like I'm not coming to you with just my stomach acid, I'm coming to you with like a whole system. So right now we're in that chaos. If we zoom out, if we see the process that's happening, it's like we're being detached from the
current paradigm, from everything we used to currently see and think and how we understood the world. Yes, exactly. This is why things are getting surreal. This is why, you know, you see conflicting reasoning and conflicting headlines on the news and so on. This is what is happening exactly. The ground beneath our feet has to shake. I think it's shaking. Someone wrote it in a song, actually. I think you may be familiar with it.
Oh.
That's the thing. The ground has to be shaking beneath our feet. But, you know, if we know, again, that it's going to a good, more evolved, you know, our next state of development, then we will be taking the step forward in a whole different way. Again, you know, think of the baby who has to learn how to walk. You know, the first step is difficult and frightening and weird and confusing. Why is mommy leaving me all of a sudden? What's going on? But he's learning how to walk. You know, so this is sort of the kind of development that we have to go through now. Seth, I'm looking at the chats here and I see that we have We have viewers from a bunch of different places. So let's do our global check here real quick.
Let's do it.
And maybe while we're doing it, also get a quote ready for us so we can
Sure.
maybe continue on that. Today we are all here to serve you. Our guests today is you guys. So go ahead and ask questions about whatever you want the Wisdom of Kabbalah's take on. Today's your day. Just ask anything and we'll try to get to everything. So we have friends today connected live from Ethiopia, from Nevada, from Bulgaria, Israel, San Diego, Florida, Virginia, New York, Ghana, Rhode Island, Brooklyn, Massachusetts, London, Philadelphia, Miami, Brazil, and Washington. So
amazing. Thank you everyone for being here. So amazing.
Yes.
So amazing.
Every one of you is precious. Every one of you is important. Every one of you is a pioneer in humanity's spiritual evolution. So let's go to the quote of the day. Here's the quote of the day. You want to read it? Should I read it?
Go for it.
Okay, I will. So Kabbalist Bala Sulam, the greatest Kabbalist of the previous century, writes to us in an article that he titled Peace in the World. He writes this: "Do not be surprised if I mix together the well-being of a particular collective with the well-being of the whole world. Because indeed we've already come to such a degree where the whole world is considered one collective and one society. That is, because each person in the world draws his life's marrow and his livelihood from all the people in the world, he thereby becomes obligated to serve and care for the well-being of the entire world." How do you take that, Seth?
Well, we have to look at if we're looking at the world through the vision of our own eyes, then like the stomach or whatever before, then I'm coming to hug you with all my stomach acid and it's a problem. But if we see the process of unfolding that's happening here, then I understand that I am a part of this body called humanity, and my well-being. I think the problem, Asaf, and the kind of my frustration when I was opening was that so what? So, the right wing is going to destroy the left wing, and then what? Then they're going to rule, and what are they going to do? Then the left wing is they are going to win. They're going to they're going to take down the right wing, and they're right, and they're going to vaccinate everyone, and then what? It's even if if everyone from the right wing let the left wing win, or if everyone from the left wing let the right wing win, either side would just destroy everything anyway. They would have a run at doing whatever they were going to do, but because everything is so ruled by the ego, they would just destroy it. It's like what we talked about. We always talk about. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, so let's go colonize Mars with the same egotistic attitude and just destroy that planet.
Yeah.
So
yeah, even if we went there and build the whole thing from scratch, with all the technology and the know-how that we have today, just rebuild everything. Now what? Now what will happen to all the alienation, depression, pollution, exploitation? What else? Violence, drug abuse. That won't happen all of a sudden, all over again. Why? Yeah, it's
so Bala Sulam wrote this in the probably the 30s, 40s.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing that
There's no internet.
About 100 years ago, this Kabbalist tells you, listen, we've already come to a point where the world is interconnected. We are one global village. That's just, and again, that's the kind of foresight that Kabbalah can give to us, and having that vision of the future, having that confidence about where nature is leading us as a species, that gives you a whole different a whole different glasses through which to look at reality and to feel and experience all those conflicting, confusing headlines you see in the news.
So I had
Yeah.
someone texted me this morning. She said, why don't we just like smash all cell phones and just like create a revolution of just destroying all of this like media that we're like so addicted to all day. And you see it's impossible, first of all. Second of all, it's actually, if it's used correctly, it's perfect. You can get a message of love and connection to basically every
Mm.
person. You can feed a person
Mm-hmm.
all day with thoughts of connection, with thoughts, with inspiration. You can feed it, you can nourish everybody with inspiration, with nourishing music and content and videos and movies and activities and games that they can learn to play. Put the phone down and play. The phone itself, the networks, the social networks themselves are not intrinsically bad. They need to be filled with this. They need to be filled with love, with life.
Mm-hmm.
You ready to take a question?
Sure, sure. Before that,
Okay.
I'll just mention that there are some more places that are where people are joining from that we didn't say before. So maybe we forgot Brazil, and there's also Greece, and we also have British Columbia, Canada, and Toronto, Canada, and Barcelona, and Poland, and LA, and Berlin, and Guatemala. Guatemala. Wow.
Wow. Nice. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Guatemala.
Hello. So
Okay.
yeah,
So,
let's take a question.
all right. So, hi, everybody. Again, we're answering questions here today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them either in WhatsApp in Facebook or YouTube, and Bright will pass them on to us. Okay, Asaf, this one
Connecticut is
coming to
watching as well. Yeah.
Okay, this one is coming to you from Full Armor Incorporated. This is our
Okay.
first corporate question.
Okay.
Full Armor Incorporated on YouTube, saying it's very hard to rise above this whole situation. Full Armor, I
Agreed.
agree with you.
Agreed.
Agree.
Yeah.
It is very hard, and it's getting seemingly almost more difficult. The question is, what attitude do we take, thinking maybe there is some evil underlying reason for all of this? And if it does go bad, how do you speak about that? Okay, I'm not exactly sure where the punctuation is in this question, but
I am not sure about the question as well. I'll try to respond to what I understood,
Okay, go ahead.
but maybe correct me according to how you understood the question, or maybe Full Armor Incorporated. Maybe you can elaborate on your question or further clarify it. Yeah, it's definitely true that it's hard to rise above this whole situation. That heaviness that we feel, that difficulty is required. Look, spiritual development is not some, according to Kabbalah at least, okay? It is not some, sit in a pose and meditate or something like that. These things could be good. Maybe they can provide some calmness. Maybe they can provide like a very subtle detachment, momentary detachment from your ego and your troubles. And for a second there, you might feel elevated. This isn't the kind of spiritual development that Kabbalah is talking about. Kabbalah is talking about a transformation of, for lack of a better word, our guts, our spiritual guts, our operating program. We have to go from today being completely washed by and indoctrinated by self-benefit and always judging and perceiving reality through self-benefit. This is a program that rules us and dictates our thoughts, feelings, and actions before we even grab hold of it and recognize that it's happening. And so we have to gradually, like Seth said earlier, nature is helping us detach from it by confusing it, by shaking, by making the ground shake beneath our feet. But making the step towards a new program, that's something we have to do volitionally. We have to do this consciously. And so that's why there's a certain thing, very special thing called free choice that we exercise in rising above spiritually. And that's why there's a certain difficulty involved. But it's once we understand the process, it becomes beautiful. It's no longer difficult. It becomes adventurous. It becomes an amazing experience of rebirth That is what needs to happen now these days to humanity as a whole. This is what Kabbalist Baal Sulam was just writing to us in the quote, that we've come to a point that we have to become this one interconnected global organism. So if you're saying that sometimes you think there's maybe an underlying an evil, something evil behind everything that's happening, it's only when we don't see the true laws of nature and where they're leading us. Look, we can expand on this a lot more, but we should try to keep the answers short to answer more questions. So I see another one. You ready for this one, Seth?
Sure.
So Samson from Ethiopia, hey Samson, is asking this. Kabbalists can influence their environments. If this is so, are we influencing for the massive spread out of the virus, for accelerating the final goal? Again, hard for me to capture exactly what Samson is asking. I'll read it again, okay? Kabbalists can influence their environments. If this is so, are we influencing maybe the massive spread out of the virus for accelerating the final goal? Oh, okay. I think I understood the question like this. Tell me if you can answer it like this. I think Samson is saying, look, maybe as Kabbalists we should be hoping for or pushing for a massive spread of the virus so that it can accelerate the correction process, the transformation process for humanity. What would you respond to that?
I would respond that it took me such a long time of studying the wisdom of Kabbalah to understand where the spiritual action actually takes place. And what we start to understand from studying is that we exist in a system. Okay, there's a lot of variables. I didn't choose my parents. I didn't choose where I was born. I didn't choose how I was raised. All the people around me, the same thing. All of these, everything that we experience in our life comes from ancient causes. We're going to go deep for a second. Just hold on. The wisdom of Kabbalah says that everything is being operated. Even us, all our thoughts, everything in the world is being operated integrally. Everything is like gears in the system. The problem is we don't perceive what's really happening. We're like some child in a sandbox, and we think we're in control of what's going on. Mommy is really standing right there. So Samson, whatever's happening, it may look like Bill Gates is trying to inject you with something. It may look like there's some virus it's all the creator. The whole movie, that's the conspiracy. The whole conspiracy is that everything that's happening is the creator. Our work then is to see what's happening, just first start to kind of agree, not that we agree that somebody should get sick, but agree with the process that we're in. And then what happens when we begin to feel what's called the creator, this force that's happening, we then ride with this big wave. We're not fighting the wave anymore, and we advance very quickly. We start advancing and going through these changes quickly. The virus, immediately we can just become immune to it. Immediately somebody somewhere in California, wherever, has an idea. Why don't we do this? All of a sudden, boom, there's food in the desert, can grow food. And all of a sudden in Ethiopia, there's water in every village because somebody figured out how to do, everything is available. We're like fighting waves all the time. We're standing there being smashed in the face, being smashed in the face. That's what it feels like. The creator's bringing everything it's like trying to get your kid to eat the vegetable, and you want to give him a present. You want to give him the ice cream. You're just like, eat the broccoli. I'm going to give you the ice cream. And all he sees in his face is this green monster. He doesn't understand. Just eat it. Then you'll be healthy. Then you get the ice cream. So we as Kabbalists don't look at, oh, Donald Trump is like bad like that, or this Dr. Fauci like that, or this one over here, or China over here. They're all forces. They're all integrated forces working together in one system.
Let's include into your answer right away another question here, just because it's very relevant to what you started answering. So Sylvia Bone from Guatemala, hello Sylvia, is asking, what about vaccines with a chip? Okay, so I see that a lot of people these days are concerned about this, right? There's a lot of talk about, Maybe this whole COVID thing is this, like you started saying, this conspiracy thing, and people are trying to control us, and Bill Gates, and they're going to put chips in us, and with that chip they can control us and all that. How does Kabbalah look at this? First of all, a lot of interest, definitely to be well grounded and understand where we're living in. There's definitely a lot of falsehood in the news, and there's definitely all kinds of interests that are at play. People have all kinds of interests involved in that chain that eventually gives you information. And then there are all kinds of things that are happening in the world, and we understand them, some of it through the news, some of them through our personal experiences. Now, from that, because people don't understand the overall plan of nature, which is bigger, higher, greater, more inclusive than humans, because we don't understand the natural system of laws that we're in and how it guides our development, we fill that lack of attainment, that lack of perception, that lack of understanding, that area of dark, concealed space where we don't know what's actually happening. We fill it with all kinds of theories. Some of them may be true, some of them may be far-fetched and have nothing to do with the truth, and some of them may be half true and half not. When you learn the natural laws of the system, and that's what Kabbalah is for, you realize why it doesn't matter whether someone is trying through this thing that's happening right now to control you in one way or another, because they too are puppets in the hands of a bigger force that is orchestrating this whole theater. And so it's very possible that in the future, we may be living very different lives in terms of how our privacy would look like. I'm not so sure, based on what I understand from the wisdom of Kabbalah. I'm not, and looking at how technology is developing and the interconnection and interdependence of the world, I'm not so sure that the concept of privacy, the way we know it today, will remain. If you told people that like Arthur C. Clarke, for instance, envisioned the internet in 64 or something like that, and he talks about a situation where, because we will improve communication, we won't need to commute. People can work from home, and people will be able to build their businesses with other people around the planet without even having a physical space. That would sound nuts and weird if you were there like 100 years ago. So it's possible that things are changing in a direction that right now seems weird. And it's also possible that some people are trying to control. I'm not in favor of chips or vaccines or this or that or anything like that. It's not the point. The point is that the world is moving, evolving. Concepts are changing. Patterns of thinking are changing. Technology is developing, and our connection needs to be upgraded and it needs to evolve. What we learn from the wisdom of Kabbalah is that it doesn't matter when you have all kinds of interests from people trying to control you in different ways, because what we're dealing with is how to be in balance with the one force that controls those people as well as yourself and as well as everything else. And what we need to do is to come into balance with that force of nature and with that program that nature put us on. And when we go into balance with it, then life may seem very different from what we know today, but it will definitely be better and not worse. So I wouldn't worry so much if you learn the wisdom of Kabbalah and get some insights about where nature is going. I wouldn't put so much effort and so much thinking into all kinds of, every day you can come up with a new conspiracy theory and be totally anxious about it. That's not definitely going to push you in a better direction. You want to add to this, bro?
No, you covered that one.
Okay. Here's something that is more Kabbalah, I think, or spiritual growth oriented. Uh, Maybe take a crack at this one, Seth.
Okay.
Biruk from Ethiopia is asking this. Long time ago, when sitting and watching the sunset, suddenly a thought came to me. What if everything I see outside is actually inside of me? And it always bugged me. And for a long time, and finally, the wisdom of Kabbalah I found also says this. So the question is, how did this thought happen? Where do our thoughts come from, Seth?
How did Viruk have a thought that everything on the outside is actually on the inside? Where did
Yeah.
his thought come from? Same place all of our
I
thoughts come from.
yeah, I believe that's what he's asking.
Okay, the same place all of our thoughts come from. The same place somebody's
You don't want to expose too much.
No.
I'll add a little bit. I'll add a little bit. It's actually fascinating, Biruk. Everything that we experience in this world already happened. I know that sounds weird, but listen, give it a minute. Already happened in potential. We came from an interconnected reality, something the Kabbalists call a collective soul. And that soul was shattered. But it was shattered deliberately in order for us to start growing consciously. And so what happens is that all of that ladder of development already happened from being completely connected to each other and to the governing force of nature to being completely disconnected. We went down many steps, 125 to be exact. And all of those were encoded into something we call in Kabbalah a spiritual gene. We call it reshimo. Just a technical thing, no reason to it's a spiritual gene. And that spiritual gene dictates everything that happens in this world and how we evolve. And so all of our desires, all of humanity and all of us as individuals are developing according to that spiritual genes. We gradually evolve and we change social regimes and people have different thoughts. And suddenly Bill Gates comes up with Microsoft. And then, all of those things are it's simply information that is now unfolding from potential to actual. And your thoughts are included. So that can awaken a whole can
I think
of
Biruk,
thoughts.
I think
But
Biruk,
yeah.
I think the what's at the heart of what Biruk is asking is that the actual, what we learn is that reality really is just a projection of our internality, and he's wondering how is it that I already knew this when I was watching a sunset years ago, and now I'm studying it and I'm discovering that it's actually true. But this is, Biruk, we're gonna have to dedicate a
Yeah.
whole show just to you,
But
my
you knew
friend.
it because it was in your spiritual gene. Okay. Let's
Okay.
let's
go
do
to the
some
next one.
more. Yeah. You got something there? You see something?
Alex Meditations says, is the ritual of the cross, the star ruby, are they from Kabbalah? Alex, I don't know. I have never heard of those things.
I haven't
sure.
heard of them either. So they're probably not from Kabbalah.
Okay.
There's a but just to be fair here, there's all kinds of symbolism. There are some symbols also that Kabbalah uses, that Kabbalists use, but it's only describing spiritual states of development. It's not like there are no, according to Kabbalah, physical objects don't have any special magical force to them. There's no, maybe you've heard in other places that call themselves authentic Kabbalah about red strings and holy waters and all kinds of things like that. If you're talking about authentic Kabbalah and the authentic sources, there's symbols that represent spiritual states, corporeal symbols, but they don't have any kind of spiritual influence. Okay, what else do we have?
Okay, here we go. Full Armor says, how do you speak about the wisdom to people when there is so much crazy stuff going on, real threats? Okay. Let's see. Full Armor, listen, not everybody, some people are open and some people are not open. The best thing to do, and this is really our work, and that's the purpose of this show, because um, not everybody here has the ability or the time or the desire to sit in and watch hours and hours of a Kabbalah lesson every day. What we are working to do now is distill that and make it as simple as possible, clean it of all of any kind of language of sfirot and partsufim and all these things, and make it just something that everybody can understand, because the purpose of the entire wisdom is that all of humanity unites like one family. That's the whole purpose, that everyone, black, white, yellow, red, that everyone becomes like one family, that we all wake up in the morning feeling cared for, feeling love, and that we go out into the day to love everyone. So what your job is, Full Armor Incorporated, is to find, maybe there's a clip Asaf takes after the show is over. He takes small clips from the show, little bites. Maybe you find something there that's helpful. Maybe you found one of the quotes that's helpful. Just maybe you can pass on to somebody just a little something. And if they're interested, you can give a little more. But nature will prepare a person. If a person's not uh, able or ready to hear something, it's not worth it to debate them or fight with them about it. Okay, Asaf, I see the questions are now getting
You just brought up something. I thought maybe we should present, just ask our viewers for something. You guys, we appreciate everyone on this show, and because you were just saying what we're trying to do in this show, and then I thought, okay, maybe we can bring this up. We're looking for a new name for the show, because we started this on the, when COVID just started and everyone was on quarantine. So we thought, okay, let's call this Quarantine so we can talk about connection through the quarantine. But I just thought, like, maybe to bring it up, Seth. So maybe just very quickly, we're thinking about a new name for the show. If you have ideas, send them in the chat. We're looking for.
It's bigger than a new name, though, Saf.
Yeah,
it's bigger than a
it
new
is.
name. This virus is gonna, we're gonna, whether it's 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, whatever it is, we're gonna move through this state, and then there's going to be the next crisis that comes, and the next kind of, well, depending on how humanity moves. But we're going through, like, okay, so a baby is inside of his mommy, okay, for 40 weeks, which is interesting because quarantine comes from 40, quarant, right? So, and the ark and the 40 days and 40 nights and the whole thing.
Yeah, and
So,
we talked about the quarantine also for humanity being as some sort of an embryonic state for a new world. Interesting. Yeah.
so the baby inside mommy, then the baby before he or she comes out flips upside down. The flips, so the head is the lowest part, and then it gets squeezed through a very, very tight canal. This is also through the story that we learn, that everybody knows about exiting Egypt. That's all, that language is the same language about, some kind of flip had to happen, and then it had to pass through the name Egypt, and all that is meanings like this tight passage of being squeezed. So it's every change to a new degree kind of goes through this same kind of birth process, right? So I already forgot the question.
No.
Okay,
You're good. You're good. You're doing good.
The show.
So this is
Okay,
what
so
we want to guide people through this birth canal, I think is what you want to say.
well, I wasn't exactly trying to say that,
Okay.
but that's nice.
Okay.
We want to create it's the right idea. We want to create, this show needs to be, and this community around us here, all of us together, we need to be a place that we can go through this birth together in a comfortable way. We need to understand what's going on, understand what's happening in the world. So it's bigger. It started out as quarantine, but now we see what's happening, and it needs to be bigger. It needs to be more than that.
So shoot us if you have any ideas. Think birth of a new world. Think the global transformation is imminent, and that's what we're all going through. And we need to understand where we're going and how to be reborn into a whole new world as a collective humanity, connected to each other and connected to nature. If you have ideas for a name, shoot it into the chat. Sorry, I just had to get that off my chest.
Okay, thank you. Jacqueline from New York, awesome question. How do our corporeal desires change or shift the more we study Kabbalah, or do they remain the same? She didn't ask, or did they get worse? But I'll add that. Or I'm trying to grasp how we feel our spiritual growth. Right now, I only grasp it on an intellectual level. I'll ask again, how do our corporeal desires change or shift the more we study Kabbalah, or do they remain the same? I'm trying to grasp how we feel spiritual growth. Right now, I only grasp it intellectually.
There's two parts to this question. The change of desires and spiritual growth. First of all, we don't need, I'll just say quickly, we don't need to try to fight any of our desires. That's honestly just a mistake that sometimes as new students in Kabbalah we might be having. We have all our desires, all of them, from the littlest to the greatest, from the worst to the best. Whatever desires you have, whatever you think of them, they're all part of you and they're there for a reason. What we need to focus on is the importance and the desire, specifically the one desire that Kabbalists call the point in the heart, that desire that we have for spiritual development, that desire that cannot be fulfilled by any kind of material in this world, but any kind of experience through the five senses. It requires a development, a spiritual development, in order to be fulfilled. When you focus on that desire, it's very possible that you'll see some changes happening inside of you with regards to your corporeal desires as well. Sure, but this is not going to be a forced process, and this is something we don't need to try to reduce, restrict, or bend any of our corporeal desires at all. We just need to focus on spiritual growth. Now you're asking, I'm trying to grasp how we feel spiritual growth. Right now I only feel it intellectually. Seth, what would you say?
I would say that sounds pretty correct. There's also a lot of confusion, similarly like what we feel in what we said at the beginning of the show. It's like you have on the one side, it's like, okay, the virus is going away, we need to go outside. And on the other hand, there's a spike in things. And, so it's the same thing when we're advancing spiritually. It's like, oh, I get it. The creator is controlling everything, but I just got my mortgage. Like, what? I don't understand. Like, so now I finally found this wisdom and I want to invest my time in it and I want to try and love everybody. But if I don't like leave the house right now and go to my work and do these things and then I won't be able to like pay my bills and take care of my family. But then I can't think about this. So that's exactly what happens inside of us. We're constantly processing this. It's like mixing like dough or something like that. And all of these kind of sparks, for example, let's just use an example like who's this, Jacqueline. Let's use an example like this. Jacqueline, you're like taking sparks of the upper light and you're mixing them into your dough. The dough meaning like your flesh, your life, your everything, your desires. You're taking the sparks and you're mixing it in and mixing it in until there's enough of them mixed in. Like if you had like a big thing of whatever and you put like a little salt in, you wouldn't taste the salt. But once you get to enough in there that it changes the matter. So in that way, that's what's happening. And so first, okay, I understand I need to do this, I need to do this, and it is kind of intellectual. And then you'll turn around, and even if your only experience is this show, if you were to be diarying your perception of reality from the first show to now already, there's questions we can ask you, and you'd see already how you start to change your perception of things. So it happens. And similarly, you're inside the womb and you're developing, and first a little like that and a little like that and a little like that. And then after 40 weeks, you flip up, your whole perception changes and you pass through that canal to another level. And of course that happens again and again as we develop.
Beautifully said. I'll just add 3-4 more words. Explore connection with others. Okay, and by that I mean especially the others, like those who are watching the show right now. Just think. You say it in the beginning, it's intellectually fine. So just think about try to experience and think about your connection with other people who have this unique desire for spiritual development. We have More questions? Are you seeing something there, Seth? Um, there is something here from Greece, from Saloniki. Omiros from Saloniki, which is in Greece. Um, okay, after being quarantined for 14 days, I began to realize how futile this whole situation is. If indeed the virus spreads so readily, we will be able to we will be back to the start again. What do you mean by, what do you think he means by back to the start? I'm not sure I got that.
Meaning back to quarantining all over again and all that.
Oh, it's very
I
possible
think.
that lockdown will happen again. Sure. It's already happening in some places. Is that the question? That
I'm not
if
sure.
okay. Uh yeah,
So
it's
let's ask. Let's stop a second.
yeah.
So listen. This is, first of all, this is an unbelievable thing. We are getting stumbled. We're stumbling on language because there's so many countries and so many languages here. So when you ask your question, let's try like this for everyone. Try and ask, even if you're using Google Translate maybe or something, try and ask like one sentence with either a question mark or a period, and then skip a line and then another sentence, just so we can really understand your thoughts. Like, I've been quarantined for 14 days, period. And then question. This way we can understand clearly what you're saying. We'll learn through all of the different languages to communicate with each other better.
Yeah, just to make sure that we actually answer what you want us to answer. Alex from YouTube is asking, trying to figure out, how does Kabbalah connect to the upper world? We don't have a lot of time left. I'll do this one quickly. Alex, there's one point and one point only in you that can connect to the upper world. And guess what? It has nothing to do with your body. It has nothing to do with your 5 physical senses. Nothing to do with your desires for food, sex, money, honor, power, knowledge. But you do have a tiny, tiny little point that at the moment it has no mass, no volume, no area, only no weight. It only has potential. But you can already get in touch with that point. That point is that question, that burning question inside of you. Who am I? What is the meaning of life? What's the purpose of it all? Where is it all going? And that's the point that led you here. And so Kabbalah is simply a method, a program, a map of how, when you focus on that little point and you give it your attention as much as you can, it will unfold and open up like a flower. Kabbalists know this not because they're magical beings, because they're people who have been through that experience before you, and they wrote down their experiences. It's a very empirical thing. And so they can tell us where to aim ourselves and how to focus on that desire, right? And how to exactly, try to develop it more and more. And as you do that, then you will connect that point. When it opens up, it connects to the upper world. It already has connection to the upper world. It came from the upper world. Upper world simply means a heightened state of perception of the forces that work in reality. I'm not going to expand on this more. It's already too much. We have 5 minutes left. What do we do, Seth? More questions?
Yeah, let's keep going. Where everybody's on fire right now.
Okay. You have something you picked up, or okay? Adrian.
Go ahead.
Adrian Petaut, hopefully I'm saying your name correctly, from YouTube is asking this. I was also wondering about nature preparing someone to receive. Doesn't it mean that I should not try to engage in anything really, rather focus on internality, since life will correct anyway? Okay, I think I understand this one. You got it? You got this one?
Sure. Adrian, this is one of the primary questions that people have when they first start to understand the wisdom, and we even talked about it for some time today. If the creator is operating everything, so why don't I just sit back on the couch and let him operate? So very, very precise answer for this. We live with our feet on the earth. We do all of the normal things like all of the animals. we work, we make a shelter, we take care of our family, we stay healthy, all of those things. And simultaneously, we build an upper world. We build a vessel of perception to perceive the upper world. So it's two things happening simultaneously. We literally are living this world. We know very well. This is where we were. This is the world we're familiar with outside the window, and then this is the spiritual world that we build. This is what we do, what we learn in our courses. This is we enter into a new perception of reality, and we continue to do both, live in both. So we can spend another couple hours talking about that, but well, let's go. Okay, so this is a question I saw on Facebook, Asaf. I'm going to ask you this question from Jake.
Yeah.
This is a serious question, a heavy question, but I think that
Okay.
it's important. Okay, some of us in the world, especially the severely traumatized, may not be able to rise above. Suicide is the true pandemic of our time, and abuse also. Since everything comes from the Creator and everything the Creator does is good, does that mean that it's not really bad when these things happen? Guess we need a couple hours, but okay.
Yeah, to take you to a place where you can, there's a very clear answer, but to take you to a state where you can feel it a little bit in a way that is acceptable is the challenge here. Yeah, first of all, you're absolutely right. Suicide is definitely the pandemic of our time, tied together with depression, which is the number one cause for suicide in most cases. And also depression is an exponential pandemic that started. The predictions became basically it's an exponential pandemic. The thing is this: we live in a reality that all we can see is this reality that we're in. We're very narrow-sighted, and we therefore interpret and judge and evaluate everything that's happening in the world, everything that's happening to people, to our relatives, to everyone we know, only according to that limited framework. Kabbalah tells us this: life, reality, is actually much bigger, much, way bigger than everything that is happening here. And everything that's happening here, I understand it's not that easy to agree with, but everything that's happening here, with all the horrendous and horrible things that may happen, Kabbalists say about that, when they wake up to the spiritual world, they call this a dream. They say we were as dreamers.
Brother, can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
We also remember the last question. We're living on two worlds. If you're in an unsafe situation, Asaf is talking about the true reality, okay? We're seeing a tiny bit, which is here, this reality. If you're in an unsituation, you leave the unsituation. Don't someone hit you, and while they're hitting you, saying, "Oh, this is good." Okay, sorry, brother. Continue.
Yeah. On this level, in the physical world, there are physical laws. If you're going to jump off a roof, you're going to fall, it's going to hurt. It doesn't matter how spiritually evolved you are. A Kabbalist can break their leg and their hands and everything else in their body, etc. We're not talking about that. You're asking, how can something like that, the pandemic of suicide, be something that, if I understand the question correctly, be something that is ultimately good in some way? Isn't that just pure bad? So it's hard to capture this, and you really need to evolve a little bit in Kabbalah in order to get this. But there is a bigger plan and a bigger reality than everything that we know right now. And that's why, I'll give you an example. We don't have time. I'll just give one example. There's something that is said from a Kabbalistic perspective when a person dies. And it is a statement about how great is the upper force. Why is that said with regards to a situation where someone dies in this world? We know death as something horrible, that, where everything stops. But if you're looking at things from a spiritual perspective, from an eternal perspective, there is no life and death. The physical body is a transient moment in our evolution as we go through a spiritual evolution that's bigger than that. And our frail biological body and everything that's happening to it is just, is only the very tiny speck of existence from all that exists. And so the only way to really see how everything is full of goodness, and the only way to connect to that is to connect with the governing force of nature. Until then, we can sit here and talk about how there's a bigger plan and everything is leading us to a better state, but the reality is that you're going to live in this world and you're going to feel traumatized by some things, and some things are not going to feel good. But gradually, as we are, sharp in our minds and lucid about where we are right now, we're working to develop our perception of the upper world. And then everything will look differently. I think that's the best I can do in a couple minutes. So
wow, man, heavy stuff. Wow, everybody, thank you for holding on today. This was a lot of really big questions, and helping us form what it is. Nobody knows what it's going to look like, what the future is going to look like yet. We understand that everything will develop, but it's like, you can fall in love and you can want to make a family, but you don't know what your kids are going to be until they're born. And once they're born, if you're a good parent, you raise the child according to their kind of inclinations. So we don't know, we understand where we're headed, but we have to build it together. So thank you everybody for joining us today. This was deep and hard work today. I appreciate it. I appreciate you all very much. Thanks.
yeah,
Asaf.
there's many more questions that we haven't got to. We'll try to copy them to some document where we can answer them in next shows. Thank you everyone for being here, connecting from so many places around the world. Let's listen to this song together. What do you say about this?
Let's do it.